right.
Here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. Tonight in the studio, I got William Parks Pillow Jr. Welcome to DSNSB, man.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I love the full name intro.
Yeah, man. Yeah, at first I only found William Pillow, I think, and then I found the Parks and the Jr. somewhere else, LinkedIn or on the World Wide Web. Two last names, or is it all one?
I'm from Mississippi, so we're very into our middle names, I guess. So yeah, I just put it all on LinkedIn because I am a junior and my dad's a doctor. He overshadows me. So
how was life growing up in Mississippi?
That's a great question. It's what I knew. It's what I still know. I think it was just an extreme place to grow up, extreme place on all sides. I spent a lot of time in the Delta of Mississippi where there's a real big poverty, generational poverty, like wealth gap.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just an extreme place to grow up. I went to the biggest public school in Mississippi, product of public school education. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And then I also grew up gay in Mississippi, went to college in Mississippi. So, I haven't been there in 10 years, but I haven't lived there in 10 years is what I should say. So
when you say there's an extreme poverty gap, does that mean there's like a really rich neighborhood and then right next door is a really poor neighborhood?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mississippi and Alabama rank on the bottom or at the top if it's not a desirable category. And so that's just kind of how it is. It's still kind of a backwards place. It's definitely developing. And I've seen a lot of growth since, in the 30 years I've been alive, but it's definitely still got a long way to go. And I don't see myself moving back anytime soon.
Are they very gay friendly?
No, it's so funny. When I go back home, I'm often in Mississippi and Alabama, and it's like, all right, where's my loose clothes? Where's my, definitely like,
where's my loose clothes?
I have like my back home outfits. My parents are like,
terrible.
Don't you buy clothes all the time? And I'm like, yeah, but this is like what I wear when I'm back home, which is sad, but it's just kind of something I've come to terms with.
Yeah.
I will say that where I went to college, Oxford, Mississippi, Ole Miss, go Rebels. It's definitely improved a lot. It's definitely improved a lot as far as what's socially acceptable and just I think how people treat others.
Yeah, that's good. What about the Austin scene? Let me rephrase that question. How long have you been in Austin specifically?
Yeah, so I moved August 6th, so coming up on 2 years.
Okay, cool. What do you think of the gay scene in Austin? Obviously, well, from my first impression of 7 months, relatively similar to Sacramento, pretty friendly. We got some gay bars, but I've been so busy with the podcast, I haven't really ventured out of the studio too much.
Yeah. So I think that what I like about Austin, it's a very queer-friendly city. My experience being gay, once people find out, they treat you differently, sometimes better, sometimes worse. Okay, so what does that look like? Let me try to explain. So you tell somebody you're gay and they love gay people, they just treat you different and like, oh my God, where's brunch? Where's this? And just the stereotypes of being gay, they ask you about all the time. And then for, some people still have an issue with it and they just may treat you differently or it may weird them out. So what I like about Austin is I feel like I'm just treated as a normal person. And that's something that I didn't experience most of my life.
Yeah. I've never been into punk rock music. But one of the guys that was on, this guy right here, Tom Barbic, he's a drummer for a band called, Tommy, I'm sorry. I'm blanking right now.
Sorry, Tommy.
Sorry. I'll post a picture of him up on the YouTube version of this episode. But I've been going to more punk rock concerts, though, since I've been in Austin to support him. And people, when they find out I'm gay, they don't react at all. It's really refreshing. And I brought it up to him once, and he's like, that's one nice thing about the punk rock community is where he almost sees them as this island of like misfit toys. And so everyone sort of comes with like a thing, whether it's like a a divorced family or you're gay or
Yeah.
you're whatever, like everyone sort of feels like they have this like some sort of weight on their shoulder that they carry. And so it's been sort of cool, like getting to know him and his friends in his community. I've changed like the music I listen to in the gym now a little bit because it's just getting introduced to all these new bands. Hard Sell, that's the name of the band. There it is.
Hard sale. Get your copies now.
They're going to be in San Antonio on Saturday the 16th. I don't know why I'm announcing it because this episode is going to be released long after the 16th. But anyways, well, that's cool, man. Welcome to Austin, and congrats on your almost 2-year anniversary.
Same
of
to
relocating.
you. Yeah.
Let's see. What was what have you been up to before we jump into your story and your journey and whatnot? Anything out of the ordinary or interesting or exciting going on in life these days?
I love summer. I love summer in Austin. So it's been hot, but I grew up in Mississippi, so I'm used to it. So I've just been having a great summer, being on the boat, water skiing, pool. It's easy to wake up early.
Yeah.
My favorite is 9 o'clock nights with like when you're walking outside, you smell the fresh cut grass from the day. So I've just been super, super happy that it's summer. That answer is much different in the winter.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of trying to ride that summer heat wave.
We showed up about me and the dog, being the we, about 3 or 4 weeks before that ice storm hit. The one in early February where it knocked out power to half the city.
Oh, yeah. I still had power. Yeah.
And the stairs on either side froze over and we couldn't leave for about 2 days and we had no power. So we were just stuck up here.
That's terrible.
My neighbor risked leaving and I didn't know him yet, but I heard him leaving. I was like, how's he going to get out of here? So I cracked open my door and opened it as quietly as I could. And it looked like that scene from Home Alone when the robber was trying to go down the staircase. He was hanging onto the railings and I could see his like feet slipping as he was trying to climb down the stairs. I was like, dude, you're going to break your back.
You should have just sat down and done a water slide. Yeah. I don't know if it'd be harder to get up or down.
Well, I can tell you this. I didn't know the first day they were frozen over. I didn't realize because there was no ice in Sacramento. So I fell down the staircase.
Oh,
I was fine.
yeah.
Getting up was a little more nerve wracking. For the dog, it was easy because I just let go of his leash and he ran up.
Yeah.
Good for you, buddy. But yeah, I got up fine, but then we didn't leave again because I was afraid I was going to crack my ankle or break my back.
Yeah. Just your pride was hurt.
Just my pride, but then there was also that healthy fear of like, okay, if we don't leave for a day or two, it's not going to kill us.
Yeah.
We have food. Fortunately, I bought firewood. Had a little bit of battery power left on some of my devices, so we lived.
Yeah. I have to work on being alone with my thoughts, so that would have been hard for me to do.
By day 2 was frustrating. Day 3, it rained and it melted the ice, and I found out a Starbucks had power.
Okay.
So I got a power strip and I drove out there and commandeered one of their tables, and I had 2 computers, 2 phones, my Bluetooth speaker, just like 7 different devices charging while I posted up there and drank 6 cups of coffee.
Getting them back for that $3 cup of coffee.
Oh yeah, I took doubled their energy bill that day, but that's fine.
That's on them. I think they can afford it.
So I'll bleep this out on the live before the episode goes live. But do you have your brother Austin's phone number memorized by chance?
I don't.
Here's why. Tell me if this sounds familiar. B3.
Probably.
In one of your posts, I forget what you said, but you were like, if you want to call my brother Austin, I should have wrote down the rest of the context of that.
I don't have Instagram, yeah.
It was hilarious to me. I was like, all right, guess anyone can just shout out Austin if they happen to find this one.
So Austin he's a very handsome guy, and he won at Ole Miss. I think he won, most handsome. Every year he would always win, like, sexiest guy at the school. And I would always get like, well, you're funny, like most likely to make me laugh or something. And I think I'm still kind of dealing with that mentally today with my workout obsession. Kind of joking, but kind of not. But yes, he's now married. So you probably shouldn't call him. I should probably go delete the number.
Did you forget that was on there?
Yeah.
It was a couple years. It was from like 2013, 2014. It was a long time ago.
That's like, that was in his prime. He doesn't look like that anymore. Austin, if you're listening to this, you need to step it up.
He's not winning Sexiest Man of the Year anymore.
No. You need to use the eye cream I bought you for Christmas.
That's hilarious. I wonder what that would even do to like his head though, or anyone that won that award. Like, would it make you feel like you had to meet some sort of standard, or like would you feel obligated to go to the gym or to do your hair a certain way because now all of a sudden this bar has been set of I'm the sexiest college guy in Mississippi, you know? Or
He handled everything a lot better than I did. It would have definitely gone to my head, but that's probably why people didn't vote for me.
Is he pretty humble, would you say?
Yeah.
That's cool.
He's very humble. Considering the circumstances. He's got his master's in engineering, successful sales job. I think he is pretty humble. More humble than I am.
And then you have another brother, Rob, right?
Rob, I've got Austin, who's 18 months younger. So there was definitely that healthy competition. And we fought a lot growing up until like this one day, and we never really, like in 8th grade. Then we kind of realized, all right, hey, this is like a cruel world. We need to be on each other's side. And we pretty much were ever from that. I mean, we still get into tiffs, but not bad. We've both worked on our communication. And then I have Rob, who is 5 years younger.
Okay.
And that relationship's definitely more of like a, I wasn't going to fight with somebody 5 years younger than me.
I'm not going to fight with someone 5 years younger than me. Why not? Naturally, y'all never butted heads.
It was really, Austin would fight with Rob more so. It was more of like I don't want to say like I had great parents that watched him, but more of like I babysat a lot and I was just there for him. We just had a different relationship. We always have. And it's been really cool. He was probably who I felt closest with when I came out. Still probably the one I feel like I can be my most authentic self with, and he just loves me and laughs and doesn't really, he's always been an independent thinker. I think everybody has to unlearn a lot of beliefs that they were taught growing up.
Yeah.
Especially in a super conservative Christian household in Mississippi. And I think being the third born, less of those beliefs were pushed down as hard, but I think he also is the type to question ideas and beliefs. And he's done a really good job of thinking for himself while also making good decisions.
Good for you, Rob.
Good for you, Rob.
Good for you, Rob. And is that all 3 siblings total?
3 siblings are William, Austin, and Robert. And the initials spell war, W-A-R.
Oh, yes, they do. Did your parents plan that?
No, but that's like their LLCs and stuff. Like, so.
That's okay. Clever. Good job, mom and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or LLC. I like that. That's cool. Are you guys all still pretty close to this day?
Yes. And for me, it's definitely been a developing relationship for a lot of reasons, but we're still like, I think my relationship with my family and my brothers is better than it's ever been.
Good.
And I'm encouraged to keep, developing that relationship.
Yeah. What state are they both in Mississippi, or did they?
So they're both in Nashville, which I was like, I get bummed when I see them doing stuff on Instagram, but I just recently got Nashville as a work territory. So I'll be there like 4 to 5 times, expenses paid a year.
Nice.
So that will be really nice. And I think that'll kind of offset living so far away.
Yeah. I similarly just got reassigned to our Miami office, as well as a few others in, I don't know if you know the Florida area, but like I think the most north is Jupiter, and then the Boca Raton area, we have some people as well. So I'm also looking forward to going out there on someone else's dime and just seeing a state and a city I've never been to before.
I love Miami. I love South Beach, Jupiter. I love the water. I love the ocean. So I'm jealous. I don't want Florida because our Florida market is a mess. So
I do recruiting, and yeah, I got assigned to it for the same reason. It was a mess. They had just so many open positions. We were almost to the point we were thought we might have to get rid of some clients because it was like, who's going to do the work?
Yeah.
We can't keep up with it. But it's a good problem for me to have because it's
Yeah.
job security,
Especially right now. Florida just marches to a beat of a different drum.
I've heard this. I've heard the jokes like they're their own country within the U.S. and stuff like that.
Florida is Florida, yeah.
Florida's Florida.
Yeah.
What does that tell me? One thing that implies.
I mean, just Google Florida headlines and you'll be able to make your own assumption.
Okay.
Like Florida man, Florida woman, and it's just the craziest thing. Constantly, though. There's going to be a new headline every day. You're like, there's no way that the one from yesterday can one up. And then it does.
Hell yeah.
Every single day.
You know what I'm probably going to do tonight? It's just spend 30 minutes Googling Florida
A Florida man, a Florida woman, a Florida man named Dave, and see what pops up.
Yeah. I'm curious. I was raised in a pretty conservative home as well, so I'm excited to hear what was similar, what was different, being raised in a Californian conservative home versus a Mississippi conservative home. But let's dive into it. What was it? What was your let's go back to, as far back as you can remember. And start with a good memory. Any just like really fond memory with Austin or with the family back before you were 10?
Yeah, so I have a lot of really fun memories with my grandmother.
Okay.
She lived in Yazoo City in Mississippi in a big plantation style home. And it was just fun, I mean, we had go-karts and we had golf carts and she had a pool, and a farm, and it was just a freeing place to run around and be active. And I knew from like a very young age, like how much she loved me and how it was just my favorite place to be growing up.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, I do have a lot of really good memories, but that was my favorite place to be. And she was my favorite person for the longest time. She actually sent me a text message this morning. But yeah. So growing up, in grandmother's house, is my favorite place in memory.
What's her name?
Funny story. So her name is Janie Pillow.
Grandma Janie.
Janie, but we call her Gunky, which is a terrible name. And it started because my aunts were mad at her, and I was the oldest grandson, and it was time to come up with a name, and they were like, call her Gunky, and it stuck. And I didn't realize it was a weird name until I kept getting lost in like CVS's and the Jitney Jungle, and Yazoo City, Mississippi is probably not the best place to be 5 years old and lost. And this is pre-cell phone, so this is when you go to the front of the store and you say, hey, I'm lost. Can you call for my grandmother? And they would say, what's her name? And I would have to say Gunky. So they would then be calling for Gunky Pillow, who did not pay attention. And there would be like 5 announcements, and then she would finally come to the front of the store. So yeah, I then learned her name was Janie by like the 9th time getting lost.
Like, why is everyone in the store laughing? What's going on?
And what is she doing? Like, I'm lost. Where is she?
I don't think I've ever seen my 16-year-old nephew cry. I still haven't. But the last time he flew from Oregon to California, apparently he got lost in the airport, and he heard the announcements of like, wide clear, the plane's about to leave. You have 60 seconds. And so the plane ended up leaving before he could find the terminal. And he was there by himself. He's flying home alone. And I guess he just lost it in the middle of the airport. And this poor 16-year-old boy was just crying his eyes out on one of the benches. I can't find gate D.
I mean, who hadn't cried in an airport? They need to have an award.
Right. It happens to all of us. It's a traumatizing
If you're not
place.
breaking down in the airport, delete my number.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Did you grow up Christian, Catholic? What denomination or religion were you guys?
Yeah, so I grew up Christian, and the denomination was Presbyterian, which is a pretty strict, denomination as far as it comes to like, I don't know, we grew up, we went to church on Wednesday, we did youth group, we did, Sunday school, Sunday morning, we did church on Sunday. I went to tons of missions trips that actually were really funny, and I can talk about them. But yeah, I mean, we were totally immersed in that culture.
Where were these missions trips to? Local to the U.S. or did you get to go
Yeah,
far?
yeah. So, and I think that it's great that people want to go help other countries, but the U.S. has a lot of places that need help and they need love.
Hmm.
We would go to Cary, Mississippi often because I think it was really important to like, we're in Mississippi, let's help Mississippi out. So Cary, Mississippi is super rural. It's in the Delta. We'd go for 7 to 10 days in the middle of the summer. It's very hot. And we were not, we were outside doing manual labor, like roofing trailers and stuff like
Huh.
that. It was tough. We were like 14 years old. We were living in the trailers, and then we went to Chattanooga, where, we were staying in the middle of the projects for over a week. We were hearing like shootouts every night, and we were just in the bottom of a trailer, just like on the ground, just us bullets were flying like 200 feet away. We're like, is the fence locked? So yeah, I went to tons of mission trips, and I think that's what made when I look back on my experience with the church, um, I had a lot of anger and a lot of resentment for a long, long time. And what I have learned is when like that holds power over me. So I was able to release it. And what I choose to do is look back at all the good times and all the times that made me better or funny stories. And a lot of them are these just terrible missions trips where we were, just truly thankful that nothing bad happened to anybody.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we had some crazy mission trips. Let me think what else. This is actually a pretty funny story. So my brother and I were in Chattanooga, right? This is where we're hearing shootouts like every other night. It's like 13 of us sleeping in a single wide trailer, just with little mattresses on the ground. And we're exhausted. We're ready to come home. And this man has snored 2 nights in a row. So loud. And nobody else is bothered by this. But Austin and I, this is when we're getting along after the 8th grade. Well, maybe it wasn't before. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This man is snoring. So we are irate at this point. So I'm like, I'm going to hit him with so what starts off with is one of us would just hit this man as hard as we could with a pillow, trying to wake him up. And he would wake up for like a minute. And then, also Austin and I would like jump down real quick so we didn't know who did it. So we ended up I don't think I've ever admitted this. Like we kept hitting him and he would just barely wake up and he would keep snoring. So we ended up putting change in our pillowcases, hitting him. He would wake up for a second and then he would just go back and keep snoring. So we didn't hurt him, but I mean, what would you do if you hadn't been sleeping and there were shootouts going on for days at a time?
I think he woke up and then went unconscious from the coins hitting him in the head.
It was like, I should have left that part out. It was like
Who's like,
3 pennies. It was probably, I don't know. I'll take credit for it. I'm not going to blame Austin for putting coins in a pillowcase.
we're not
But
going to throw Austin under the bus when he's not even here to defend himself.
no, I'll take credit for that. It
For
probably
sure.
was me.
Or maybe, even if it was pre-eighth grade, I would think that if you're in an environment where there's bullets flying overhead, that would unite any brethren.
Yeah.
Let's stick together and we can start fighting again when we're back in the safe zone of home.
Yeah, definitely.
Remember back at Grandma Gunk's house?
Yeah. Which we did fight there. But
Was there anything in particular that happened your eighth grade year that caused you two to start getting along, or was it more just a gradual thing where in the eighth grade you realized like, oh, we haven't fought in a year, this is sort of nice?
so I was at the public school, and Austin switched to the public school, and it was the biggest public school in Mississippi. So use your imagination. And I think it was from that point forward we were like, this is a crazy life. We need to stick together.
How big or small is the school, do you know?
It was at least 2,500 people.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a big school.
For some reason I was thinking you were either going to say it was like 300 or 20,000.
No, this was a high school. Our middle school, though, was probably 800, 900 people a grade. It's pretty big.
That's about what my high school
Yeah.
was. Yeah, give or take. Okay, cool. So you guys united at eighth grade. Did you always feel resentment towards the church, or was it as you were getting older and you started to figure out that you liked men, or where did the initial resentment come from?
You know, I went to a Christian school growing up, and people were not kind to me. And I held on to that, and I'll kind of joke about that in a second. But I held on to those resentments, and it just kind of snowballed. You know, I never felt welcomed in the church. I never felt comfortable there. And I think for me, at least, I would replay things in my mind, and they would get worse, and I couldn't let it go. So that resentment started probably about fifth grade. I knew I was different. And then I held on to it for, you know, longer than I would love to admit, but it wasn't until probably about 2 years ago when I was able to completely release it, find peace, and then actually make my way back to the church, on my own, which is something I never thought would happen.
Interesting. Do you go to today?
You know, I go, probably like once every 6 weeks.
Okay. Which church is it?
I haven't found one that I definitely call home yet, but I like to go to Presbyterian churches that are accepting of gay people, just because I thought I would never find that. So there's definitely a piece to going back to somewhere that, you know, was so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I've thought every now and then, I don't have the thought often, but I haven't been to a church, and if you take out going to my sister's church at Christmas time, I haven't stepped in a church in 8 years.
Yeah.
But there's a part of me that I wouldn't be opposed to it. I would just so if you find one that you would recommend, shoot me a text. I'll join you one someday.
All right. It's taken, you know, once every 6 weeks. I'm not just.
It's not like clockwork.
It may be a few years at that rate.
Maybe I'll once a month or something. I'll do some hunting too, and we can tag team this thing until we find one that we like.
Yeah, you know, and what I try to appreciate is just being able to go and sit still, with my mind, and, you know, not be on my phone, not have any notifications come to me, and just find peace in the silence. And that's what I've been able to do by going to church. Even if I'm not, you know, I've been to some and I'm like, what is going on? But I just use that time to pretty much meditate and just sit there for an hour and be present.
Do you find the gym to be a meditative place?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. I have always found I've not always had healthy ways of coping, but the gym has always been my healthy way of coping from the time I was very young, probably, you know, third grade until now.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember during COVID, I almost wondered if my relationship with the gym was unhealthy, in the sense that it was taken away.
Yeah.
And I was sort of had this realization of like, what do I do with myself?
Yeah.
You know? But it wasn't just the gym. Like, I was laid off, so I also didn't have my all of a sudden I just had all this time. But it was such a part of me that I don't know. I just sort of had this little bit of a crisis of like, if my body goes downhill, is that like where my confidence stems from? That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
You know?
I think about that all the time. And I can tell you, that's why I have started doing a lot of meditating and a lot of just like mental health work, because inevitably I'm going to get hurt, right? As I age, something's going to happen, and I'm not going to be able to go to the gym. And how am I going to cope with it in a healthy way? I've got to be able to control my mind. And it's a lot easier for me to physically work out than it is for me to mentally work out. It's just, I don't know, it's always been that way. But I make it a point daily to do some type of mental workout, really preparing for the day when I'm not able to work out or something happens, you know, even just a sprained ankle or something where I'm there for 2 weeks and I can't work out. How am I going to handle it? How am I going to work through it?
Yeah, agreed. I hope every day, man, I see those older guys in the gym and they're not even like necessarily doing anything crazy, but I'm just like, I hope that's me, that I'm physically healthy enough that I can show up and I can do something. But
Yeah.
that's not always promised. I might get hit by a bus tomorrow and shatter a knee or
Yeah.
cap or something, you know. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. But
I'll send you some meditations.
Thank you. Thank you. So you one of the parts of your story that we were going to touch on today is that you are sober.
Yeah.
Was your addiction mainly to alcohol, drugs, a mix of both?
Does it work? That's what my addiction was. I love to escape reality. I love to change the way I felt. And I think I know that still shows up in my caffeine consumption, in my, love for the gym. I love to change the way I felt. I struggled with alcohol. I struggled with other illegal substances. And it just continued to progress. And I moved to Austin. And it's like I'd worked on myself and I had really cut all that stuff back. But I moved to Austin and I thought, once I move, first of all, let me just tell everybody something. When you move, your problems follow you.
Right.
I've relocated twice and I'm thinking, all right, all my problems will go away. They don't. They don't. So as I moved to Austin, I realized for the third time that my problems have not gone away. And I had, I thought when I got a different job, I was living in a new city and I thought I would be happy and I wasn't. I was miserable. And normally when you ask people, why'd you stop drinking or why'd you stop doing whatever, they say it worked until it didn't. And I truly experienced that. Alcohol had always done the trick. It had taken away, it had taken away those feelings of, that social anxiety. It really was a social lubricant and it just became to where it wasn't working anymore and I was miserable. So my friend told me, they were like, but I was doing pretty well in life as far as job and where I was living. And a friend was like, why don't you go to a meeting? I was like, all right, it can't get any worse. Like I'm already miserable. So I went to this meeting and I was terrified, an AA meeting. And they said to me, keep coming back. And I knew I needed to stop. I knew that nothing good was going to come from this. And I was interviewing for a new position at my company and I got the job. And I knew that if I kept drinking, I knew if I kept using substances that I was going to lose the job. I knew if I were to quit the substances and succeed in this job, it would be a really good jumping. If I failed, it was going to be a major setback. If I succeeded, it was going to be, a major springboard ahead in my career. So I said, you know what, let's try to put this stuff up. And I did. And it's truly been the best decision I've ever made. Yeah. Have I done it perfectly? No. But has it changed my life? Yes.
Do you remember how old you were or when your first drink was?
Yeah, 16. And I mean, looking back, I'll say this. I drank like an alcoholic from the time the first time I drank.
Yeah. See, it's always funny when I hear people drinking before 21 because I was one of those kids where I wanted to wait till it was legal and I was around it, but I really don't think I consumed even like a sip of mom and dad's wine. Like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And it was it was my very first drink was a pina colada at not Macaroni Grill, the Cheesecake Factory with my friend Christy Green.
Yeah.
And I remember just not getting it, probably because those drinks aren't that loaded. But
yeah.
I was just like, what has everyone been so excited about? Or why is there so much shame around this in the church? Or why did this seem like such a big deal? Like, it's a really tasty drink.
Yeah.
I went about my day afterwards.
Yeah.
Just not understanding.
I remember, and my parents were super strict, so I was sneaking around them and stuff. But I remember one time they had a party, and I was probably 18, and I don't think I'd had beer yet. And I, stole a beer out of the refrigerator, and I was thinking everybody liked it, adults. I was just thinking it was going to taste like Dr. Pepper because that was what I liked. And I drank it, and I was like, spit it out. I think that was the only time I ever spit a drink out.
That noise you made in the way it hit my microphone.
It was nasty.
Yeah, the first beer I drank, I don't remember what it was, but I had the same reaction.
Yeah.
I truly was so confused why people were pounding these things.
Yeah. Well, I made up for that in the long run.
So did you were you drinking consistently at 16 or when did you?
No. And I'll talk about this. So I believe that there's a disease called alcoholism out there and it progresses, right? So when I was 16, I wasn't doing it much, but it progressed over time and I could quit for short periods of time. And that's why I really would just dive into fitness, right? Because it was the only healthy form of coping that I knew at the time. At this time, I'm learning that I'm, coming to terms with being gay. I'm just coming to terms with a lot of things, and I never learned how to really cope in a healthy way. But it continued to get worse and worse and worse. And I'll say, once I moved to Austin, I was drinking, and it was pretty sad. It's not a time I like to. I'm not, I was drinking every night. I wasn't drinking during the day, but you're drinking at night, you're waking up, you're anxious. I was miserable. And I knew like this was just, I could not succeed if I continued to do this.
Yeah.
And they say that really addicts move at the speed of pain. And I finally got into enough pain where I was like, yeah, I'll go to that meeting. This is miserable.
Was there, when did you, I don't want to say when did you know you were gay? Because even me, like,
yeah,
it sort of came about over a course between like somewhere between 5 and 12.
Yeah.
I remembered, because between those ages, like, we don't know words like horny, or we can't even get an erection, right?
Yeah.
But I remember just like having a different feeling towards men than women. And it was my 8th grade year when I went from being homeschooled to putting back into school, and I saw a football player with the shirt off, and I was like, yep, I'm gay.
Yeah.
So that was like a pretty definitive moment for me. But did you sort of have a moment like that, or?
I remember, like, it's interesting you say 5 to 12, because that's kind of, I remember like being, like pre-K or something, you're about 5 years old, thinking I was different.
Yeah.
And my parents being like, you can't stay at a girl's house. And I'm like, why? She's my friend. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, you should be worried about me staying at a boy's house.
Right. I'm going to go to a slumber party with 5 dudes.
Yeah.
Rethink that.
Yeah. Which, I'm glad I didn't say that at the time.
Same here.
I'm like, but like, that's when I knew something was different. And then I knew something was different. Really, I think in 8th grade, I started getting migraines. And that was the only time in my life I've ever had like 4 or 5 of them, because I was just really stressed, because it was getting, the feelings were getting stronger and stronger. I was on the swim team, so I was seeing people change. Yeah. That's the only reason I joined. I'm joking. I was on the swim team my whole life. But like, I knew it wasn't going away, and I couldn't really suppress it. So really 8th grade, and then as I got into college, I was still praying, I was still doing all these things, but the feelings just got more and more and more, and that's really when I started with my alcohol consumption, because I just wanted to escape, because I was told my whole life that it was wrong, and I'm doing what they're telling me, but these feelings are getting more and more and more. What do I do? So I drank.
Yeah. Whenever I was in church, I never prayed this out loud, but in my head, when we were praying, I'd always ask that God, when I woke up the next day, that I would find women attractive. Yeah. Did you ever try to suppress your homosexuality or anything like that?
Yeah. And I dated some of the most amazing women now, as far as, they're just funny, smart, just wonderful people. And I thought, well, damn, if they can't do it, like, I'm not changing.
Yeah. We can totally cut this out, or if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. Did you ever try to have sex with a woman?
Not really. I mean, kind of when I would be drunk, but
yeah,
it was not. That was another thing I was taught in the church, right? Don't have sex until you're married.
Right.
And I was taught that my whole entire life. Never had sex with a woman. So I did that right, I guess.
That was one of the...
See, I listened.
Same here. I can say that as well. I've never thought about that. Still following that rule. Yeah, that was one of the hardest things for me is trying to reconcile that of like, well, for me, the problem was, what if all these thoughts about men are wrong? And so I need to get married so that way I can't have sex the right way. Yeah. And maybe I'll find out that I love vagina.
Yeah.
But then what if I don't? Like, how far does that go? Do I divorce her after the wedding night? Do we pop out a couple kids? And then 20 years later, it's this huge disaster. Yeah. Where, like, it was such a debacle for a 16-year-old to try to be That's so much weight for any
It's a
teenager to
lot
try
of
to
weight.
figure out, like, what do I do? What's the solution? There really isn't one at that age, except to, I don't know, try to accept yourself for who you are and come out of the closet and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I yeah. I think that the LGBT youth just needs to experience love. Um, I've like volunteered with some groups and really tried to show that because I think that my life, I had great parents, but I don't think I never experienced like love for being my authentic self.
hmm,
Um, and I just think that would have gone really far, you know?
yeah.
So I definitely experienced a lot of heartache and made a lot of wrong decisions. And I think that so many of the LGBT youth in the world that we live in, I mean, they're bullied. They're a minority. It's a scary place to grow up. And just a hug and just to be told, like, it's going to be okay. You are perfect the way you are would go really, really far and help people avoid a lot of bad decisions.
I remember I read this book recently, and it was studying a lot of case studies of some of like the more notorious like murderers and
Yeah.
rapists in the U.S. And one common thing that they realized as they were um, looking, researching their childhood was that
Yeah.
a lot of these kids growing up just didn't have. It was two things. They didn't have. They weren't like acknowledged and loved,
Yeah.
or it wasn't acknowledged. One was love. They just didn't have a lot of love growing up, and the other one was like reassurance, like being told they're handsome or they're
Yeah.
smart or you're good at what you do. You're not. They weren't getting any affirmations. And as I read that particular end of that chapter, I thought, is that all it takes? If all parents and siblings were just reaffirming their
Yeah.
kids and trying to develop loving homes, the world would be that
I
much
mean, you
better of a
was smart, you
place.
was kind, you was important.
Right.
Um, I think that goes a long way, but I think a lot of it's, nature versus nurture. I believe that's about 50-50.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely doesn't hurt, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, I think we live in a world where, for me at least, I'll treat others pretty well, but I don't always treat myself that way. And I've had to do a lot of work to learn to love myself.
Hmm.
It's not just like, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else? And then you just decide to love yourself. I wish it was that easy. For me, it wasn't. I think as people, we put ourselves down often.
Yeah.
So anytime you can help encourage somebody, do it. You know?
One of the quotes that you have on your social media that made me chuckle because it's problematic, but I
Oh
resonated with
gosh.
it was, please like me so I like me.
Yeah. Talking about Instagram likes. My Instagram's William_pillow. Go like my pictures.
Yes, please do. I'll go like a few.
Yeah, I mean that's joking, but it's not.
Right. There's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, any funny stories that you'd care to share pre AA? I have some friends who have told me just some hilarious tales from their days of drinking and using, of just ridiculous, driving cars the wrong way through fast food restaurants,
Yeah.
to one guy called the police on the police, not realizing it was the police chasing him, to
We think we think of like I mean, I truly say this to myself every day. I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be alive. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be alive. Um,
if one comes to you
yeah.
on that, what you just said, did your drinking and using get to a point where you were like thinking, were you having any visible health issues, or was it more of a, if you didn't stop, you just know life would have ended significantly earlier than it should?
I think with drug consumption, it's bad for your body and things can just happen. And I think at the level I was progressing, um, if I didn't die, I would at least just be so, so, so miserable.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know. I mean, I just got myself in a lot of bad situations, a lot of really unsafe situations. I just got myself in a lot of situations that, you know, ended poorly. Hospital visits, police visits.
Two places you don't want to be
Two
frequenting
places you
often.
don't want to be frequenting often.
So was there any particular thing that was going on when your friend mentioned that you, because it was his idea, right? Were you considering going to
Yeah,
AA
yeah.
or?
So here's what was going on. So we worked together, right? We worked, and I was the front end of the. No, he was the front end of the operation. We were working for a company. We were buying houses, right? So he was signing on. He was making sure that we were buying them for the right amount of money, and then he would pass along the scope of work to me. I would make sure the work got done, and then we would sell the home. Well, I was coming in Monday morning every day with I was sitting under a weighted blanket on a Zoom, like with the shakes. And he was finally like, dude, you got to get it together. Because by Wednesday, I mean, I was really good, but then I would start again on Thursday. So, you got like 12 good hours out of me. And if you needed something done, ask on Wednesday. So he was just eventually like, dude, you need to do something. Like, it's when you watch somebody in that, it's sad. It's funny at first, but he was like, you need to do something. And I was like, I don't know what I should do. This friend has been sober now 11 years. It was 10 at the time.
Cool.
9 at the time. And he told me some stories about himself, which made me feel better, of what he used to be like. And he said, go to this meeting. And I think he like texted me like that. He was like really stayed on top of me. I went to it. And I didn't instantly feel better. I was so nervous that somebody was gonna, like, that I was gonna be labeled an alcoholic or like what people would think of me. Keep in mind, I have, lived this reckless lifestyle where,
For years.
yeah, it's like, okay, you didn't care then. Why do you care now that like somebody sees you trying to get help and change? Like now you all of a sudden like your ego's gonna get in the way.
That's a funny way to look at
Yeah.
it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like God forbid someone try to live a healthier
Yeah,
life,
yeah,
whether
right,
it's
like,
alcohol
what-
or anything. Like,
Yeah.
why are you letting your pride keep you
Yeah,
from-
like I'll pass out on the street and not think a thing about it, and then I'm going to get help, and I'm just like so concerned. Yeah. So one thing I have to tell myself all the time, and I didn't come up with this, but your ego is not your amigo. My ego gets in the way all the time. That's just an example of it. But yeah.
Yeah. I know that in meetings that they sometimes say the Lord's Prayer, the term God is used. So during that first meeting, or even the first couple meetings, did you have any sort of assume like, oh, this is just
Oh,
another
yeah.
version of church. I tried church, it didn't work. And did those quote unquote religious terms ever scare you away at all? Or did it make it almost more comfortable? Like, oh, this is a language I speak. Maybe I could fit in here.
Yeah, so let me think about that. I think I was just like I didn't care, you know what I mean? I'm like I'll get to that when I get to that.
Sure.
Kind of like Milo's hierarchy, but in this weird reverse order. It's like I do know that like once I started to kind of think for myself, I definitely had an issue with it. But it says clearly like we came to believe in a power greater than ourselves. And so I was able to really conceptualize that. But I was also able to go to meetings in churches where I received a lot of help and met great people. So through working the steps, through finding relief in churches, I was able to really let go of resentments from the past. I remember I was telling my sponsor something and I was so mad. And he finally was like, that was 17 years ago. And I was like, it was that long? 17 years ago? He's like, you think you might want to just let that go?
So you
like,
would have been like 11 or 12.
Yeah. And I'm holding on to it. So they say in AA, uncover, discover, and discard. I was uncover, discover, and holding on. And he was finally like, you should just let it go. We did some stuff around it. And I was like, okay, yeah, now that it's pointed out it was 17 years ago, it's time to let it go. So I was able to. And I found so much freedom.
So it's interesting that you say that phrase, let it go, specifically, because one thing that's come up with a couple of different guests is and they don't necessarily have a problem with alcohol, but I think all of us have stuff from our past that we hold on to. So if there is someone that was listening to this and they're thinking of like something from 10 years ago that they're holding on to, what's that letting go process look like, or what did it look like for you? Because it's easy to say, and even logically I would agree with you, like, yeah, I was 12, I should let that go.
Yeah.
But it's hard to just, like, when I think about, you know, friends that rejected me because of my homosexuality, I guess for me it's hard to just let go of pain, or let go of anger, or let go of depression. You know, it's so what is practically, what did you do to let that incident go?
So I think in general, you know, if you can't, I think therapy's great. But I like journaling, right? Anybody can journal, right? You need a sheet of paper and a pen. And I journal at night, and I let go and I write my thoughts out. And a lot of times I really try to break my thoughts out into my like emotions. And most of the things are fear-based, right? So typically you're going to be scared of something. So breaking it down, I think, is a really good start. But I really like this definition of forgiveness. It's not mine, but it's forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different. It's accepting the past for what it was.
Forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different.
Yeah.
I love that.
So it doesn't mean that, you know what I mean? Like, and that's what it is. It's really just accepting what happened and ultimately choosing to let it go. Because if we hold on to things that people did to us, it's controlling us. And for me, it starts to ruin my life. I can guarantee you they're not thinking about it. So why are we?
Right. I remember I was you're gonna laugh at this, it's so stupid, but I had a similar moment when I was like 25, 28. I
Yeah.
forget how old I was, but I was rewatching the Disney movie Lion King. You've seen that one, right?
Yeah.
And it was the part where Rafiki hits Simba in the head, and he's like, you know, he said something. It was the whole concept of like Hakuna Matata. It's in the past. You know, you can't do anything about it. And I had this like eye-opening moment with Rafiki, and I'm like, we're sort of just like I
Yeah.
did with you. And I'm like, here's this really like dumb Disney movie. I mean, it's not dumb. It's
Yeah.
probably my favorite one. But I'm like, they slipped in this very subliminal but very
Simple.
powerful
Yeah.
message of like, why are we holding on to these things that you literally can't control? I can't control that. This monkey just hit me in the head with
Yeah.
a stick. Like, it's gone. It's in the past.
Yeah.
It's never gonna
That is
change.
true.
So
That's
why
true.
am I holding on to this resentment?
I think a lot of people hold on to it because they think that I'm not sure. I think they don't realize what it's doing to themselves. But like staying in that loop and repeating it over and over again, it's only going to amplify your pain.
Right.
So let it go, Elsa, you know?
Yeah. Was there any particular time during your time in AA that it just clicked for you that you were supposed to be here? Did it take a few months, a few meetings, working the steps, or did you always just sort of know, like, okay, this is home, this is where I need to be?
I mean, when I do this stuff, I feel so good. But yes, I'm like always like feeling sorry for myself. Like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. Definitely when I came into the rooms and I was told that I was an alcoholic and I accepted it and that I wasn't ever supposed to drink again. You know, in my mind, I'm like, what about at my wedding? I wasn't even
Right.
dating anybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I threw a Kris Jenner sized pity party, and like that's one of my character defects. I will feel sorry for myself. I've got a lot better at it, and like now, what would have been an hour long feeling sorry is oftentimes if you 10, 20 seconds, and then I'm able to snap out of it. But oh yeah, there was definitely a lot of like. I still have days where I'm like, seriously, God, gay and an addict? You couldn't have just picked one?
Right.
What type of lottery is this?
Have I just been a straight addict?
Yeah,
with no
pick
addiction
one.
problems?
Damn.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
That's hilarious.
I mean, I have to laugh at it, but there's definitely days where I'm like in my car driving and I'm just like mad.
Yeah.
But then I have to check it. Like, so my driving is kind of my barometer of how I'm doing in life and how I am mentally.
Interesting.
If somebody cuts me off and I'm freaking out, I need to slow down and I need to go back to really work on. For me, it's meditation, it's prayer, it's slowing down and it's checking in with my higher power. But if I'm in a good place and somebody cuts me off, hopefully I'll be pretty chill. But sometimes, like the small, somebody stops at a yellow light, and you would think that, the worst thing in the world just happened to me, and that's when I'm like, all right, what's going on? Check in, because this is not how I should be acting or how I should be living.
So forgive me, but now I have to ask.
Yeah.
So how did the drive to and from Dallas go yesterday?
Okay, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
I did it. I listened to these speaker tapes, which are actually AA meetings. Like, it'll be like a speaker telling their life story.
Okay.
And for me, they bring me peace. And it's so funny because if you would have told me this stuff 2 or 3 years ago when I started trying it, I would have been like, I would have not liked who I am now. I'd be like, that person needs to shut up. You listen to speaker tapes? Why not SoundCloud, loser? You know what I mean? And I've turned into this person where I've like have my speaker tapes and I've got my, emotional support water bottle with my Propel in it.
You became everything you said you wanted.
Everything I said I wouldn't. But I'm happy for the most part.
That makes me happy you're happy. That's a question. Oh, I forgot to ask you. That's a question I'm usually pretty good at asking people.
Yeah.
I don't ask them how they're doing. I ask them if they're happy, just because it throws them off. And then they have to think, because it's so easy to say, how are you? Good.
Yeah.
But when
good.
someone says, are you happy? You're like, am I? Sure.
And I do kind of have, not to like pick that question apart, but like, so I manage salespeople. And like you said, it is a very deep question, which can cause people to question. Am I happy? I don't know. Are you safe? I don't know. Am I safe? The roof could fall on me. You know what I mean? And it can kind of cause people to spin out. So it's a good, deep question. But I would say for the most part, I am happy. Now, it's a lot of work for me to be happy, but it's worth it,
Yeah. What are you happy about right now?
So for me, happiness is typically being present, right? So when I'm present and I'm in the moment, I'm normally pretty happy. Even if I'm sitting in traffic, right? I'm accepted the fact that I'm in traffic. Might as well try to, slow down and count my blessings and like I'm in traffic in Austin. It's an awesome city to live in.
Yeah.
So for me, being present is typically I'm pretty happy. I think I'm happy because I'm proud of myself. And for so long, I held on to so many secrets, and secrets keep you sick. And I don't have that anymore. So I don't know. I'm just pretty happy. Yeah. It's also summer in Austin. So I do this thing called inventory every night, and I'm checking in with myself. And I recently got a new sponsor, and he was asking me, he's like, why aren't you haven't been mad about anything, or like you're not resentful? Like, I don't think you're being honest. And I was like, it's summer in Austin. Like, this is my time. Like, wait till winter. You're going to be having to like charge your phone because I'm going to be calling so much. Like, I'm good right now, but there'll be times when I'm not.
What about winter triggers you? Is it the weather or just being indoors
It's
more?
everything. I like to be active, right? So I've got a super active mind, and I like to be moving. I like the sun. And when winter comes, I don't know. I have to do a lot to stay in a good place.
If finances or whatever circumstances would allow you to, I could almost see you being someone who like spends May through September in Austin, 100%. And then you just relocate to wherever's warm, September through May, and you're gone for 6 months because it's what you need to do to stay sober.
That's why I'm looking for a husband. It's expensive to do that.
Yeah, to have two. I remember this. I was listening to this podcast recently, and this guy was talking about how it has like a home in Fiji with its own independent power and water, and how everyone should have that just in case. And I'm like, everyone should have that. Yeah. I can barely afford my apartment, let alone a safe house in another country with independent water and power.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to do is this program called Outside, and I want to go to Mexico City in February. And the cool thing about Outside is I loved going to camp growing up. I love adventures. And when you're 30, it's kind of hard to go to camp, and it's kind of hard to find adventures. Yeah. But what this company does is it's co-working and co-living all over the world. So you pay a membership fee, and you go live in a cool house with high-speed internet. And, people that are about my age, like-minded people, if you're going to travel alone, you're typically pretty laid back, pretty, you know, we're going to have a lot of similarities, but I think it's important. What I try to always do is focus on similarities and not differences. And it's amazing how much better relationships are doing that.
Do you see any similarities that you see? How am I trying to word this? Like, amongst like any human you meet?
Yeah. So are you familiar with CliftonStrengths?
Drinks?
CliftonStrengths,
Oh.
like a strong strength, STR.
Uh-uh.
So we lead by CliftonStrengths at the company I work for. And it's been very influential in how I see people, and how I interact with people. And my top strength is individualization. And individualization is you see unique things in each person very, very quickly, and then you see how they can work together with others. So yes, I'm always looking for, like, even my friends are like, why do you do that? I'll just go up and give like random compliments to people and like gas people up because it makes me so excited. And I think it goes back to like, you never know what somebody's going through. And somebody who's like I have gone through a lot of like just tough times, through addiction, through being gay, just tough times in life. And you know, a nice word would have gone really far at that time.
Yeah, I remember someone told me that one of her goals for me was to be whatever I needed when that I didn't have when I was growing up. And we sort of talked about this already, but it's even just giving compliments. The gym I go to is primarily teenagers. I think it might be in the middle of like a couple high schools or something. But yeah, I'll give those guys a compliment. If I see them put up 3 plates on the squat rack, I'll go up and be like, dude, that was fucking impressive.
Yeah.
You're 17 years old. Like, well done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think,
or maybe I'm just feeding their egos.
I mean, you know, but yeah, I'm never going to give a compliment that I don't think is true though, right?
Agreed.
Like if I'm just not going to say it, I'll find something else. But, part of my, like, you asked the question, are you happy, right? And I said it takes a lot of work. So every morning when I wake up, one of the first things I do is I write a gratitude list, right? So you write 5 things down. If you can't think of something, go back to your breath, because if you're breathing, you should be thankful, right? Some mornings it's easy, some mornings it's hard, but I think they need to be actually written down, because I think there's power in written words. So that's one of the first things I do. And I think that's really trained my brain. And when you interview Oprah, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, all those people do it. And I think it's really important to train your brain on what's good in life, because what you focus on grows. And if the first thing I do is I wake up in the morning and I get on Instagram and I'm comparing myself to this person, I didn't even give myself a chance. I'm having a shitty day out of the gate. But if I wake up and I say, you know, I'm thankful for, and they can be small things. I'm thankful for my caffeine in the morning. I'm thankful for, you know, what did I put on my list this morning? I'll read it out loud. So this morning I was thankful for my grandmother, my dad, caffeine, car washes, and Sundays.
How long have you been doing the list for? About months, weeks, years?
Oh, at least a year.
Do you find, has it been getting easier, or do you still have mornings where it's hard?
It's definitely, I think it's also seasonality, right? Like I get up at 6, the sun's up, it's cool. But I mean, there's some mornings where I definitely have to go back to my breath, or I'm reaching. You know, some days it's super easy for me to write, and some days I'm like, why am I doing this? This is so stupid. You know?
I heard this, that when you do stuff like that, the reason it's important is because you're activating the system in your brain called the reticular activating system. And to your point, when your brain starts to recognize that, okay, every morning William's going to ask me this question of what are 5 things that I'm grateful for. And so it will go throughout the day. Your brain will look for things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And the example they gave that I like the most is, have you ever bought a new car for yourself?
Yes.
After you bought it, did you start seeing that car everywhere?
Yeah.
So the way the
That's very-
reticular activating system works is if it knows something is important to you, it will go and identify it for you. So if
Yeah.
it knows you're always needing to be looking for things to be grateful for, you might find yourself during the day just being like, oh, I'm grateful to be at Dave's place today. Or I'm
Yeah.
grateful to be on the water. Like, and then so your list is almost like pre-made for you. And then the next morning you wake up and you're like, oh, that was easy. I got 8 things today.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot easier. So growing up, my dad was an orthopedic surgeon. He was a trauma surgeon. He worked extremely hard and he saw a lot of extreme things, right? I mean, he was working in the ER doing call and stuff. And so we were just not really allowed to complain. Because, you know, what's it going to do, right?
Yeah.
He didn't want to listen to his kids complain. We had a pretty good life at that point.
Yeah.
You know?
How did your family deal with your coming out? Were they pretty accepting and supportive?
That's always, yeah. I mean, so people ask, how's my relationship now? I always say it's developing. It's the best it's ever been. And I'm
Yay.
super grateful for that. You know, at that time when I came out, my addiction was really starting to kick up. So I'll take full responsibility. I wasn't the best son. So it was kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg? I think they definitely had a problem with me being gay. And they loved me, but it was hard to show at that time. But they had an issue with my actions, right? And me making it all about me being, you know what I mean? I didn't want to accept my side of the street, my behavior, right? I wanted to blame it all on, they're so mean. Like they're, you know, they want to accept me. It's like, no, you're being shitty. Like nobody wants to be your friend right now. So it's a developing relationship and it's the best it's ever been.
Yeah. Outside the fact that you're not drinking and you're not taking
Yeah.
meetings under a weighted blanket and
Yeah.
shaking, what's been one of the biggest changes that you've seen from that first meeting to today?
Oh gosh, there's so many. It's interesting when I started thinking for myself, I thought I want to be like how I used to be. Like me in the 7th grade, 6th grade, like I was always voted like most likely to be president, most likely, and I would just put myself out there. And I was positive and I was happy, you know, for the most part. And I wanted to be like that, but I didn't know if that person still existed because the person hadn't been here in a long time. I think the thing that's improved the most, I mean, my whole life has changed. My relationship with my family, my relationship with how I show up to work, how I show up in friendships. I'm able to show up. It's interesting. I recently won a big award at work. And when I took over this job, I just started, you know, trying to get sober. And I was like, this is how I want to show up one day. I don't even know if it's possible. And I never really told anybody that. I told a few people, but like not my boss. And actually about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got inducted into our Hall of Fame, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And the description was like winning with positivity and uplifting others. And it was everything that I wanted to be when I came into it. And I've only been doing this for 2 years. So I'm excited to see what happens, you know, 5, 10, 15 years down the road. I think, yeah, that was probably one of my best moments I've had in my life. You know what I mean? When it's just like, wow. Because when you're the last to see oftentimes with anything, with even with like weight loss, you're going to notice, other people are going to notice first because they just will.
Yeah. In that moment, how did you feel? Was it
Dude,
just
I
like-
was so happy. I just felt like, so they talk about it in AA, the promises, right? When things start happening, the good things start happening. And I think that I was just so happy to, I don't know, it's like, wow. It was just surreal. And I was just overwhelmed with gratitude. And my boss was like crying for me. And it was just a cool moment, you know, and it was like, I needed it, right? I was kind of getting to, I was feeling stale. Everybody needs recognition. And I really needed it at that point. So yeah.
That's awesome.
It was
That's
really
awesome.
I have like the frame certificate and everything. So
For those who are just listening to the audio version of this, when I asked him that question of how he felt, he just got the biggest smile that he's had on his face since he's been here. So
yeah, I was super pumped, right? So I always tell my team, I manage salespeople, And I want people to, it's hard to brag on yourself, right? I call them wins. And I'm always like, all right, in our stand-ups, do we have any wins? And nobody says anything. And I'm like, brag on yourself. Come on. Like, I want to hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is nobody doing it? And then when my boss asks me like something I did well, or it's hard to talk, to brag on yourself, but I think it's really important to do. And like not all the time, but.
It's funny you say that because every other Thursday we have a team meeting at work and we open it up with any wins or kudos. And I've always thought about it from the perspective of like, oh, I'm supposed to say it for someone else. Like, oh, well, I can't think of anything that Will's done that's sort of considered a win in the last 2 weeks. But it's always, I don't know what everyone else thinks of that time, but it's always like deathly silent.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in the last meeting, I've been with this company almost 2 years now. I'm like, why does no one ever have anything? What is
they don't
wrong
have wins?
with us?
I don't let us go.
I don't let us. Team,
yeah. I don't let them go to the next question. So I have like shout outs for other people, but I have wins, right? So you got this many conversions, or I don't know, personal, right? You folded your laundry, like that's a big deal, Like I think it's important to celebrate the small things in life because those things add up.
Yeah, definitely. How do you like your position of being at the management level? Do you like having people to groom and train and?
Yeah, so I've managed a lot of people. I've had big teams, smaller teams. Where I am right now, I've learned a lot. And I've got a really good team. I have a high performing team.
About how many people right now?
I have 15 right now.
It's a big team.
I've had 21.
That's a bigger team.
That was really big.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when I took over that team, it was a promotion, and I remember people saying, why do you want this job? Why are you doing that? It's crazy. They were the worst team, right? They truly were they were on the bottom of the teams.
Oh no.
I didn't really know all this. And I quickly learned, 2 weeks in, I'm like, damn, why am I doing this? But I did the best I could, and I showed up every single day, and I took that team there was 4 teams, from 4th place to the top 1 or 2 teams, depending on like the metric category.
Nice.
But that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in life.
Yeah. Did that take months?
A year.
It took about a year.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
This is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had to let a few people go.
I've had to do that before too. Even when I would let a guy go for stealing cash from our cash register once, and that one felt bad to me.
Kind of bad,
I don't like telling people you're losing your job today. Like.
Yeah.
So I've been there. I get it.
It's easier to do virtually. I had to let several people go. So by like the 5th one, I was like, all right, lights, camera, action. Thank you for joining me today. I've asked HR to be here.
Oh, man, what a thing that you don't want to have.
Yeah.
Is the art of letting go of employees.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm sure that led to a lot of personal development for you as well.
It did, and you know what? I've been let go from jobs before. One job. And I'm talking a lot. I've been let go for a job before, and it was not a right fit. And I think that that's the case with a lot of people. And a lot of times hard decisions need to be made for others, and good things come from it. Agreed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I choose to look at it.
Yeah.
This is just, I try to be as transparent with my people as possible. So by the time that conversation happens, I mean, they know. They're always impressed they lasted that long. Like, I thought you were going to get me a month ago. I was like, yeah, I felt bad,
Your accent is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
I met someone in the gym a couple weeks ago, and you don't know what someone's voice is going to sound like. And I forget why I even struck up a conversation with him, but as soon as he started talking, I was like, that Southern accent's so cool.
Say something, talk for us. Yeah, I've got that my whole life,
Yep. It's why you came on the podcast. I was like, I don't even care what this guy has to say. Let's just get a Southern accent on for a few hours.
Say something. That's what they used to always say. Say something, and I would just say something, and they'd be like, no, like, I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Well, now you can just tell them to go listen to the podcast.
Yeah, go listen to the podcast.
I'm not saying anything for you.
That's what I'm going to tell them.
What's your hopefully I phrased this question right, but what's your relationship like with your body and how you look? Do you feel confident in yourself these days?
Yes, that's a good question. And it's one that I don't know if I know the answer to. In this moment, I feel confident, right? But I think a lot of my confidence is built behind my appearance. Somebody that goes to the gym, 6 days a week and oftentimes goes twice a day. I like it, but I have to tell myself when I stop having fun, I stop working out. You know what I mean? Like it's like it's my free time, and I don't push super super hard like I used to. But it's something that it's recently been in the forefront of my mind of like, okay, I always want more, right? All I ever wanted in life was everything. And so I definitely have to to think like, all right, what's the point of this? You know what I mean? When I get the six pack, I still have the same problems. It's not gonna make me happy. When I get down to a certain weight or up to a certain weight, like nothing really changes. So I'm really having to like stop and slow down. It's something that I've done with material objects, right? Like if I don't have those, hiding behind, when I lived in Dallas and really my whole life, I always hid behind nice things. So starting to remove those and accept myself is something that I did some work on. And now I don't really hide behind that. But now I think it's time for me to not always hide behind being in shape and being able to like miss the gym.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been, I'm a curious person, and
Yeah.
I wonder, when I started working out, I didn't have any social media. So for me, I would just take off my shirt after my workout, look at myself in the mirror in the locker room, shirt goes back on, and that image is gone.
Yeah.
But as I'm referencing the gym again, looking at all these teams who are just taking like redundant hours of footage of themselves and then staring at it, and I wonder like what like sort of just what's going on in their heads. I to a point where I almost want to have one on, but I also don't know if they would be honest with me, because they might not even be able to be honest with themselves, if that makes any sense. But it was funny because one of the young ladies came up to me the other day and she was like, what's funny about all the guys here? I said, what, Molly? What's funny? And she's like, they all have six pack and they all thinks that as soon as they get that, they can just get any girl they want, but they're all still single because they think they can treat us like shit.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that we don't care about the six pack. We just want them to treat us with kindness.
Yeah. That's a good point. And do you really want somebody that only wants you for your body? It's not going to be a long-term relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that what I have to remind myself, and this is somebody, I delete Instagram off my phone all the time. I just did it earlier today. But comparison is the thief of joy. The minute I start comparing myself to other people, that's why I reference, like, if I wake up, and because what I used to do, you get on your phone, first thing I did was check Instagram, and I look at something else. Inevitably, I'm going to compare myself to, even if it's like somebody's breakfast, I'm going to be like, well, they're having a better breakfast than me, and be like pissed. You know what I mean? Like subconsciously. So I think that that's really important to, I don't know. I'm glad that I didn't have the social medias until my brain was somewhat developed.
Yeah. You know what the interesting thing with comparison too is, like, let's say we worked out at the same gym and I saw you. I was like, oh, fuck that guy. He has a flatter stomach than I do. The thing with comparison is that we're different ages.
Yeah.
We probably slept a different amount of sleep last night. We probably ate a different meals yesterday. We probably were raised, well, we know now, you were raised in Mississippi. I was raised in California. You're 30, I'm 35. Like, there's a lot that's similar about us, but when it comes to comparing physical attributes, like, there's so much that goes into that. You're comparing foam wall things to a can of LaCroix. Like, what are we even, there is no comparison. It doesn't make any logical sense for me to compare myself to you.
And what's the point, I think that as humans, we just naturally do it. So it's something that, just be aware, and try to eliminate it. And I think it just goes back to, like, it's hard to be kind to ourselves and it's hard to love ourselves. So, people used to say this to me and I didn't like it because I just was being difficult, but treat yourself like you would treat a friend. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One question that I think could be really important and impactful for people to hear. Do you feel like your social circle has gotten stronger or weaker over the last 2 years?
That's a great question. Difficult too. I thought I was a party boy. I wanted to be a socialite. I mean, I loved it. I did circuit parties. But that just kind of led nowhere. So it has been hard for me to kind of retire that, to be honest. I have great friends now. I have best friends I've ever had in my life. But it's definitely smaller, but I wouldn't call it a small social circle. I didn't really answer the question.
Yeah, because keep in mind, I didn't say if it got bigger or smaller, but stronger or weaker. So sometimes quality, it goes back to that
Yeah.
phrase, right? Quality is better than quantity. So
So
maybe,
I have some really good friends, right? So
yeah,
through all this, I've become very honest. So my friends know who I am, and they're way more than just like party friends. But I think also through all this transformation is I've just become a much more genuine person, and I'm able to connect with people and have, acquaintances that I also have good relationships with. So my relationships are the best they've ever been. I have a small group of really good friends, but I've been able to maintain, other relationships just because I'm able to like function at a party.
yeah, yeah. Do you go to parties much anymore though, or did the bar and the club and the
Yeah.
party scene sort of disappear?
So I've done all that for so much. I do go to stuff, but they say go until you stop having fun, right? So I'll go for an hour or two and I'll have fun, and then when people start getting messy is when I'll typically go home. But I definitely don't go to a lot of the things I used to go to anymore.
Sounds like you like being on the water.
I love being on the
You're
water.
part fish.
I'm part fish. If anybody listening has a boat, ask me to go on it.
If I get a boat, I will invite you.
Yes.
We're not there yet, but it's definitely on the. I'd love to have either like a pair of jet skis or just some sort of device that could go on the water one
Yeah.
day. That's a goal for sure.
Yeah, I love to be on the water. I grew up on the lake. Like, I grew up swimming. Swimming is like to me the definition of mindfulness because it's breathing and stroke, stroke, stroke. You can and nothing can get to you. You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
far as notifications. So I think that's why I like it.
Yeah.
Because you have to be present or you drown.
Someone's mentioned that about cold plunges. They said if you don't believe in being present, jump in a cold plunge because you're so focused on
Yeah.
just like regulating your breath. Like, and I did notice that when I jump into a cold plunge, I'm not thinking about good or bad things. The podcast disappears from my mind.
It's like just
Everything
surviving.
is just gone, and I'm only focused on just
Yeah.
getting that breath regulated again. Have you done one before?
I have. Yeah.
Fan or no?
Yeah, and I actually wish more gyms. I wish they would become like more of a standard amenity.
That'd be awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're kind of hard to find, or it's an expensive, thing to go to.
I think in 1 to 2 years, I'm really hoping that it does become an amenity because so
Yeah.
many people are becoming about it. I hope that gyms just realize like we're stupid for not just
Yeah.
installing one of these things,
Yeah, and it's not like the sauna where people are in there for a long time. I mean, if you're in there for a minute, like you did pretty
You're good.
good. Yeah, like people don't hang out in a cold plunge.
Do you find the sauna a very meditative place, or are you not about the heat, the sauna heat? Because obviously that's a lot different than a day on the lake or
Yeah.
the river.
I obviously, I like it more when it's colder, but I've been doing a lot of hot yoga, which is kind of wild when it's like 105 degrees outside and then you're subjecting yourself to hot yoga.
Yeah.
But like I really find it to like strengthen my mind and to be able to like sit in discomfort because once again, I'm a person that likes to change the way I feel.
Yeah.
And now I have to be able to like change those feelings without substances. So I got to do a lot to be able to like change those feelings.
Yeah. We talked about journaling.
Yes.
Talked about your relationship to your body, talked about your time in sobriety. Anything else on mental health that you're really excited about or you get fired up or new things you're doing for your own mental health that have been really illuminating for you?
I would say like nobody's coming to help you. It's our job to fix, you know what I mean? If you're sitting there and you're feeling sorry for yourself, all right, great, do that. But you got to get up and you got to do something about it. So I was taught my whole life, pray and go to church. That was about the extent of mental health that I knew. That was nobody's fault. I'm not blaming anybody for it. But like nobody's coming to save you. So the things that I found that work are I do the gratitude every morning. I meditate in the morning, which I didn't want to do in the beginning, and I pray to a higher power because I know something out there. I'm not going to get into my whole what I think it is, but something out there is greater than us, and I think that it's important for everybody to release control. So meditation and journaling and gratitude have been great for me. But I also think I would really encourage people to just get up and get moving,
Yeah.
you know, exercise. And I think it's important for people to know that if you mess up, if you overeat, if you don't do anything that day, let it go, wake up, and start over. And just try to do something, right? If all you can do that day is a 5-10 minute walk, go do it.
Yeah.
Just go do it, and pat yourself on the back, and keep trying. So I think my thing that I would say to people struggling out there are just do the best you can. And if you mess up, let it go, restart, and just keep trying to do the best you can.
And would you say that even about drinking or using again?
Yes.
Let it go. Just get
Let
back
it
to the
go.
room.
And this is coming from somebody who has, I've had relapses and beat myself up, and like, typical me, like thinking that like everybody in the world is talking about it. Like nobody cares.
They're worried about their own whatever.
Yeah, but in my head, I think that it's like breaking news on TMZ. But yeah, that's what I would say is just keep trying, and you got to do the work. Nobody's gonna do it for you.
I heard this phrase once from a guy, and he said, "The mind doesn't fix the mind; action fixes the mind." And I think that's a great summary to what you just said.
Yeah.
And I've seen that for myself. Sometimes if I'm in a funk and I can get myself to the gym, or even like this morning, I wasn't in a funk this morning, but me and the dog went to Zilker Park, and I had to bring my phone with me just because I need to keep track of time today. But I went out there and just sat down in the middle of the park and let him run around. And then he came and sat down with me and drank my cold brew. And it was just such a better way to start the morning, to your point, than staying in bed, looking at the phone. Like, it felt so good.
Yeah.
Talked to a few people, got some sunshine, got my butt wet because the grass was still moist, but I didn't even care because I was just like, it feels good just to be in the grass right now.
So there's two things that I say. Like you said, you got up and you did something. I heard a quote that says, overwhelm is overcome by action, right? So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, or when you're feeling overwhelmed, just try to do the next thing. And one thing that I practice that I actually got from Mel Robbins, have you ever heard of the 5-second rule?
I have not.
So it's very simple, but it's really just a little brain hack. Our brains are, wired to protect us, but oftentimes protection can come across as an excuse. And it can be simple as like, oh, I need to fold the laundry. How often do we need to fold the laundry? And then we're like, but I don't want to. And then we don't do it, right? So we're also wired to, when we have a countdown, we know it's time to do something. So when you know you need to do something, just start counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, get up and do it. And it's really a brain hack to distract yourself. And then once you get into that action, I mean, how many times have we just done something simple, right? Like we put the dishes in the dishwasher. That took 2 seconds. Now we're feeling better because of the action. And now I'm, folding the laundry and doing all these things. So I really urge people with any type of thing to like just 5, 4, 3, just do it.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to want to do the things that you need to do.
Yeah. So you told me before we got on mic, so you're starting to venture into the comedy scene a little bit.
I am.
Where did this come from?
So I will talk about this. Yeah. So I've wanted to be, in interviews growing up, people are like, what do you want to be? And I would say, in my head, I'm thinking a pop star, but I just, I can't sing. And I've always wanted to be a comedian. I've always enjoyed making people laugh. It's always been something that kind of came natural to me. But I never tried it. And in life, I have not oftentimes scared of failure, but with this I am. And I tell my sales team all the time, be big, be bold, be brave. You're going to fall down, get back up. That's life. And I've been doing this whole be brave thing and like really getting into it. And I'm being brave in a lot of things, but I'm like, I'm not being brave in something that I really want to do.
Yeah.
I'm not being true. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, that's not authentic to be like telling everybody else to like get in the arena and fight. And I'm not.
Yeah.
So I went to a comedy show like 2 weeks ago. I was the guest judge. I just realized that something that I could easily do, or at least like get into. So I'm going to start taking improv classes.
Sweet.
I've got some shows lined up that I'm going to go to. And then I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna give it my best shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know really what the plan is. The plan right now is to kind of grow social media, then start incorporating little stand up bits on it, and then get my Netflix special.
So does
It's
it,
gonna be some more steps along the way.
for those beginning practical steps, one, if you're ready to start practicing, for lack of a better term, would that just be trying to go to like free open mic nights and testing material on small
Yeah.
crowds?
So I signed up for improv classes that start in the beginning of August.
Sweet.
So I want to at least get through that. And then I have some friends that are writers. I'm gonna just go to some shows with like bigger people that are, doing pretty well
Yeah.
to see what they're doing because I don't want to study bad people. You know what I mean?
Yes, agreed.
I don't need to know what it looks like to bomb. I can
Right.
envision.
You can do that
Yeah,
on your own.
I don't need help with that. So I guess I'm just gonna go to these shows and then start writing jokes. And I think too, like you got to keep in mind, I was a gay addict. I am a gay addict, right? I've
Yep.
woken up in jail. I've woken up in hospitals. And I've learned to laugh about everything.
Yeah.
I've lived a very extreme life, and I'm grateful.
Yeah.
So I think that there's just a lot to pull from, and well, I study all the time. Be brave, be brave, be brave. And I tell people that, and I just need to do it, right? High risk, high reward kind of thing.
Yep. I want, just again from hearing stories from some of my friends who are in the program, I wonder if you could almost, for your first stand up, do you think 80% of that could just be pulling on your past, and maybe it's just the hilarious, exaggerated version of how you got to be where you are today?
Yeah.
This seems like easy money. You just have to figure out how to like word it and how to spin it
Yeah.
so that it will make people laugh their asses off.
I think I could definitely do that. And it's kind of something that I'm not really that reserved over. So here's my thing. I lived a lot of my life feeling sad for my decisions, right? And being in pain. And through the program, through going through the steps, I've learned to just like laugh. What's the point in being sad?
Yeah.
So I can really laugh at a lot of my just pretty much everything at this point. Sometimes I still cringe.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things I don't like to remember. But I'm not like sitting around like beating myself up. Yeah. I'll just start off like, hey everybody, I'm William, alcoholic.
That's awesome. Well, when you start doing shows, I will definitely keep my eye on your social media, and I will be in the audience laughing. Even if it's not funny, I'll laugh anyways and try to get you that
what I need.
encouragement to
I know.
keep going.
I've gotten like, the thing is I lead salespeople and I do a ton of Zoom meetings. So I'm so used to stuff like even if it lands, nobody talks back.
Right.
So I'm pretty used to the awkward silence.
The very first comedy show I went to in Austin was at Cap City Comedy Club.
Yes.
And there was this one lady in the very back where for every comedian, after every single joke, just and it was so over the top. I was convinced like this lady is paid to be here. But I knew one of the comedians, and I asked him, I was like, was she like, we can take this out of your episode, but like, was she planted? And he said, no, she just genuinely was there, happy, having a damn good time, and thought everything was funny. And I thought, that's important. We need comedians probably need that in the audience.
Edibles will do that.
You think that's what it was?
I'm sure it was
potentially.
Yeah.
Hey man, maybe she's just super happy.
Especially with a delayed reaction, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what to me gives it away.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
Before we close things out, is there anything else we should chirp about?
That's a good question.
If there's someone who happens to be listening to this and they are on the fence of, they're at that point, they're getting to that point where the pain is increasing, and maybe they thought, maybe I should check out an AA meeting. Maybe they're just miserable. If we happen, not if, I'm a firm believer that your episode will reach someone who's struggling. So if you had that opportunity to talk to that person here and now for a moment, what would you tell him or her?
I would say, it's not your fault. Stop beating yourself up. And what do you have to lose? Go check out. That's what my friend said. Go check it out.
Right.
If you don't like it, it's an hour of your time gone.
Right.
And I'm like, all right.
You have to pay to get in?
No.
Nope, it's not going to cost you anything.
So, yeah. So I would just say check it out and know that it can get better.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, everyone who's listening, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. If you liked the chirp that we had with William today, please give the show a 5 stars wherever you're listening, whether that's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or subscribing on YouTube. As I just mentioned, the only way we are going to reach that addict who should maybe explore their first meeting with Alcoholics Anonymous is if you help us spread these stories to that person. So me and William are both super grateful for your help in doing that. In the meantime, I hope that everyone has a healthy and happy Saturday night, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.